You are sitting across from someone at dinner, and they are telling you a story they find hilarious, and you can see exactly what they are doing. You can see the self-aggrandizement in the details they choose to include, the way they are positioning themselves as the hero or the victim, the subtle bid for your validation, the performance of it all. And you are smiling and nodding because that is what the situation requires, but inside you feel nothing except a kind of tired recognition. This is not the first time. This is every conversation now. You have started to notice that you cannot simply be in experiences anymore. You watch them. You analyze them. You see the mechanics, the patterns, the psychological drives, the social performances, the invisible structures that shape what people say and do and want. And somewhere along the way, without you even noticing when it happened, everything stopped being fun. You used to laugh at jokes. Now you see the need behind them. You used to feel moved by grand gestures. Now you recognize manipulation or unconscious compensation. You used to lose yourself in movies, books, conversations, experiences. Now you remain outside of them, observing, understanding, unable to participate with the kind of wholehearted abandon you once had. You have tried to explain this to people, and they either do not understand what you mean, or they think you are being pretentious, overthinking, depressed. They tell you to just relax, to stop analyzing everything, to let yourself enjoy things. But you cannot unlearn what you have learned. You cannot unsee what you now see. Understanding has become a kind of curse, a spotlight that never turns off, illuminating the scaffolding behind every human interaction, the motives beneath every choice, the emptiness inside every pursuit. And what no one tells you about the examined life, what they leave out of all those inspirational quotes about wisdom and awareness, is this. It might make you miserable. It might take away your capacity for simple joy. It might leave you watching life from the outside, perpetually aware, perpetually unable to surrender to the moment. The question you are left with is whether understanding the world is worth losing the ability to enjoy it, whether consciousness is a gift or a burden, whether you would choose, if you could, to return to the innocence you once had. Hannah Arendt spent much of her philosophical career examining what it means to think, to be conscious, to engage in what she called the vita contemplativa, the contemplative life. And one of her most unsettling observations was that thinking, genuine thinking, separates you from the world of action and immediate experience. The person who thinks deeply is not fully present in the same way as the person who simply acts. There is a cost to awareness. This is not a popular idea in contemporary culture, where we celebrate mindfulness and consciousness and self-awareness as unambiguously good things. We are told that understanding ourselves and the world will set us free, will make us happier, will improve our lives. But Arendt understood something darker, that the examined life and the happy life are not the same thing, and in fact might be fundamentally incompatible. When you truly understand how something works, you lose the ability to experience it as magic. Think about the first time you fell in love, before you had any framework for understanding romantic attachment, before you knew about projection and transference and the psychology of attraction. It felt transcendent, inevitable, meant to be. But now, having studied relationships, having read about attachment theory and evolutionary psychology and the neuroscience of desire, can you ever fall in love the same way again? You still feel attraction. Yes. You still connect with people, but there is always a part of you standing outside the experience, narrating it, recognizing the patterns, seeing it as one instance of a general phenomenon rather than as something unique and magical. The understanding has created distance. This is what happens across every domain of life once you truly start to see. You go to a party, and instead of losing yourself in the social flow, you notice the status games, the performative friendliness, the way people position themselves in hierarchies, the anxiety beneath the laughter. You watch a political speech, and instead of feeling inspired, you see the rhetorical techniques, the emotional manipulation, the careful construction of the message. You scroll through social media, and instead of envying or admiring what you see, you recognize the curated unreality of it, the desperate need for validation, the emptiness that all this performance is trying to fill. Understanding has made you a spectator of life rather than a participant in it. The conventional explanation for this phenomenon is that you have become cynical, that you have lost your capacity for wonder, that you need to reconnect with childlike innocence or practice gratitude or whatever other therapeutic intervention is currently in fashion. But this misses the point entirely. You are not cynical. Cynicism is a defense against caring too much. What you are experiencing is something different. You care deeply. You see clearly. These are not the same as cynicism, though they can produce similar effects on the surface. The real issue is that understanding and experience are fundamentally different modes of engaging with the world, and they interfere with each other. When you are inside an experience, fully immersed in it, you are not understanding it, you are living it. Understanding requires you to step outside, to create distance, to observe rather than participate. And once you have developed the habit of understanding, once you have trained yourself to see patterns and analyze mechanisms and question assumptions, you cannot easily return to immersion. The spotlight of consciousness does not simply turn off when it becomes inconvenient. Arendt called this the solitude of thinking, and she distinguished it carefully from loneliness. Loneliness is when you want connection and cannot find it. Solitude is the necessary condition of thought, the withdrawal from the immediate world of action and sensation in order to reflect on it. But here is the paradox. The more you think, the more you understand, the more you develop this capacity for solitude and reflection, the harder it becomes to connect with people who have not done the same. Your understanding separates you not just from immediate experience, but from other people who are still capable of immediate experience. If this perspective is opening something up for you, consider subscribing. I explore these territories every week, and I would love to have you along for the journey. You are at dinner with friends, and they are excited about something, a new relationship or a job opportunity or a plan for the future, and you can see all the ways it will likely go wrong. You can see the red flags they are ignoring, the wishful thinking, the gaps in their reasoning. And you have a choice. Do you say something? Do you try to help them see what you see? Or do you let them have their excitement, their hope, their temporary blindness to reality? Most of the time, you stay quiet, because you have learned that people do not want to understand in the moment of enthusiasm. They want to feel, they want to believe. And if you offer your understanding, your clarity, your ability to see the probable outcomes, you become the person who ruins things. You become the voice of pessimism, the killjoy, the one who cannot just let people be happy. So you smile and you say encouraging things, and you keep your understanding to yourself. But inside, you feel the distance growing. You are having a completely different experience than they are. They are immersed in hope and possibility. You are watching from outside, seeing the patterns, knowing how these stories usually end. This is the loneliness of understanding. It is not that you want to be right or that you take pleasure in seeing flaws. It is that you cannot unsee them. Your mind has been trained to analyze, to question, to look beneath surfaces. And now you are trapped in this mode of engagement with the world. Fun requires a certain kind of surrender, a willingness to be deceived, to accept things at face value, to not look too closely. Children are excellent at fun because they do not yet understand. They can play make-believe with total commitment. They can get lost in stories. They can believe in magic. But adults who understand, who have seen behind the curtain, who know how the tricks work, we have lost that capacity. We can simulate fun. We can go through the motions. We can smile and laugh and participate in activities. But there is always a part of us that remains outside, observing, aware that this is just a game, just a social ritual, just a temporary distraction from the underlying emptiness or meaninglessness or whatever truth we have uncovered through our understanding. I know many of you watching this have never told anyone what you are really experiencing. You have been carrying this alone, maybe for years, thinking something is fundamentally wrong with you. You have been wondering why everyone else seems capable of simple enjoyment while you are stuck in this perpetual state of observation and analysis. But here is what I want you to understand. The moment you name this, the moment you acknowledge it out loud, even just in a comment, something shifts. You stop being alone with it. So let me ask you directly, when did you first notice that understanding was taking away your ability to enjoy things? When did you realize that seeing clearly meant standing outside of life rather than living it? I want you to share in the comments, not because I need engagement, but because someone else watching this needs to see your words. They need to know they are not the only one. And if you cannot find the words right now, if it feels too heavy to articulate, just type this: I see too much now. That is it. Just those 5 words. Because when you do, you create permission for dozens of others to say it too. Your honesty, your willingness to be seen in your struggle, it helps break the silence that keeps all of us isolated. So comment below. Tell me where you are in this. I read every single one, and I promise you, you are not alone in what you are feeling. There is a particular kind of tiredness that comes with understanding, and it is different from physical exhaustion. It is the tiredness of constantly translating, of always being aware of multiple layers of meaning, of never being able to just take things at face value. Someone says something, and you hear not just their words but their psychology, their conditioning, their unexamined assumptions, their needs and fears and defenses. A politician makes a speech, and you cannot hear it as inspiration. You hear the focus-grouped phrases, the calculated emotional appeals, the avoidance of substance beneath the performance of sincerity. A friend tells you they are fine, and you see the tension in their body, the false brightness in their voice, the way they are trying to convince themselves as much as you. This is not paranoia or cynicism. This is pattern recognition. This is what happens when you have paid attention long enough to see how things actually work, how people actually operate, what is really happening beneath the surface of social performance. And once you see these patterns, you cannot stop seeing them. Your brain has been trained to look for them. Understanding has become automatic, involuntary, inescapable. Arendt wrote about something she called thoughtlessness, and most people misunderstand what she meant by this term. She was not talking about being stupid or careless. She was talking about the ability to act without excessive reflection, to participate in life without constant interrogation of meaning and motive. She observed that many of the people who committed great evils were not monsters, but thoughtless people. People who did not stop to question, who simply followed the patterns and expectations of their environment. This is what she meant by the banality of evil. It does not require special malice, just the absence of thinking. But here is the uncomfortable flip side of that observation. If thoughtlessness enables evil, does that mean thoughtfulness enables good? Not necessarily. Thoughtfulness, deep thinking, the examined life, these things enable understanding. But understanding does not automatically translate into better action or happier existence. In fact, understanding often leads to paralysis. When you see all the complexities, all the ways that any action might have unintended consequences, all the hidden factors at play, it becomes harder to simply act. You become Hamlet, thinking too much, understanding too much, unable to move forward with the kind of decisive ignorance that effective action sometimes requires. The thoughtless person does not worry about whether their enjoyment of something is authentic or manufactured. They just enjoy it. They do not question whether their relationships are based on genuine connection or just habit and need. They just have the relationships. They do not wonder whether their excitement about the future is justified by reality or just a psychological defense against present discomfort. They just feel excited. And in this way, thoughtlessness, the very thing Arendt warned against, is also the thing that enables a certain kind of uncomplicated happiness. So what are you supposed to do with this understanding? How are you supposed to live when you can no longer unsee what you see, when you can no longer participate in the collective illusions that make social life possible, when you have lost the capacity for unreflective enjoyment? The first thing to understand is that this is not a problem to be solved. This is the condition of consciousness itself, of genuine awareness. You cannot think your way out of thinking. You cannot use understanding to return to not understanding. This is permanent. The second thing to understand is that the goal is not to get back to where you were, to recapture some lost innocence. That innocence was not actually innocence, it was just ignorance. And ignorance, while it might enable a certain kind of easy happiness, comes at the cost of genuine understanding. You cannot have both. You cannot be fully aware and fully immersed at the same time. These are mutually exclusive states. The question is not how to get back to simple enjoyment. The question is, What becomes possible when you accept that simple enjoyment is no longer available to you, because something else emerges in the space where fun used to be. Not pleasure exactly, not happiness in the conventional sense, but a different kind of satisfaction. The satisfaction of seeing clearly, the satisfaction of understanding how things actually work, the satisfaction of not being fooled, not being manipulated, not participating in collective delusions. This satisfaction is colder than fun. It is more solitary. It does not produce the same dopamine rush that comes from losing yourself in experience. But it has a different quality, something more solid, more real. When you understand how a magic trick works, you lose the magic, yes, but you gain something else. You know the truth. And there is a deep human need for truth, even when truth is disappointing, even when truth takes away comfort and ease. Arendt believed that the capacity for thinking, for genuine reflection, was what made us human in the deepest sense. Animals do not think in this way. They experience, they react, they participate fully in the flow of life. But they do not step back and examine that life. Do not create internal dialogue about meaning and value and truth. This capacity for thought, this ability to be in two places at once, both in experience and outside of it, this is the human condition, and it creates a fundamental split in our existence. We can never be as unself-conscious as animals, never fully immersed in the moment, because we are always also observing ourselves, thinking about what we are doing, creating narratives about our own lives. This split is what consciousness is, and it is both our glory and our burden. The person who has truly awakened to understanding, who has developed this capacity to see through things, to recognize patterns, to understand mechanisms, this person has crossed a threshold. They have entered what Arendt called the vita contemplativa, the contemplative life, as opposed to the vita activa, the active life of unreflective doing. And there is no going back. You cannot unlearn understanding. You cannot voluntarily make yourself stupid again. The only question is how you relate to this new condition, this permanent state of being outside of immediate experience. One option is to suffer it, to constantly mourn what you have lost, to spend your life wishing you could be like the people around you who still seem capable of simple joy. This is exhausting and ultimately futile. Another option is to deny it, to pretend you do not see what you see, to perform enthusiasm and participation even when you feel nothing but analytical distance. This is the path of bad faith, of lying to yourself and others, and it leads to a different kind of suffering, the suffering of inauthenticity. A third option, the one Arendt would suggest, is to accept this as your condition, to inhabit the contemplative life fully, to stop trying to also be in the active life in the same unreflective way you once were. This does not mean giving up on action or connection. It means acting and connecting as a conscious being, someone who understands what they are doing, who sees the limitations and constraints, who is not deceived by their own performances or the performances of others. This is a lonelier path, but it is an honest one. What you have to understand is that the loss of fun is not actually what you have lost. What you have lost is the ability to be deceived. And deception, it turns out, is what most of fun depends on. Fun is when you believe the game matters, when you accept the rules as real, when you invest yourself in outcomes that you know, on some level, are arbitrary. Children can do this naturally. Adults mostly do it through some combination of distraction, intoxication, and willful ignorance. But you, having understood too much, having seen through too many layers of constructed meaning, you can no longer play along in the same way. This is not a moral failing. This is the natural consequence of consciousness. The Buddha talked about this, though in different terms. He described enlightenment as the end of suffering, but he also described it as the end of craving, the end of attachment, the end of being pulled around by desire and aversion. And what is fun except a kind of craving, a kind of attachment, a kind of being pulled into experience by desire? When you see through the constructed nature of value, when you understand that the things you want are only valuable because you have been conditioned to want them, when you recognize that all pursuits are ultimately empty of inherent meaning, then yes, you lose the capacity for fun. But you gain something else. You are no longer being jerked around by forces you do not understand. You are no longer at the mercy of your conditioning. You have freedom, the cold freedom of seeing clearly, even if that freedom means standing outside of the warm collective dream that most of life consists of. The world has not changed. You have. You have developed the capacity to see what was always there but previously invisible to you. The social performances, the constructed meanings, the arbitrary values, the collective agreements, to pretend that certain things matter when they do not inherently matter at all. None of this is new. It was happening before you noticed it. The difference is that now you cannot not notice it. Your consciousness has expanded to include awareness of the mechanisms, and this awareness is incompatible with immersion. You cannot simultaneously see how the trick works and be fooled by the trick. You cannot simultaneously understand that meaning is constructed and feel that meaning is inherent. You cannot simultaneously recognize that social rituals are performances and lose yourself in those performances with genuine unself-consciousness. This is the price of understanding, and it is a price most people never have to pay because they never push their thinking far enough to see all the way through. They stop at a comfortable level of awareness, enough to feel intelligent but not enough to destroy their capacity for participation. But you kept going. You kept questioning. You kept looking beneath surfaces. And now you have arrived at this strange place where everything is transparent, where you can see the scaffolding behind every constructed reality, where nothing is simply what it appears to be. And from this place, fun is impossible. But perhaps fun is not what you are looking for anymore. Perhaps what you need now is not entertainment or distraction or the pleasure of losing yourself. Perhaps what you need is the satisfaction of standing in truth, even when truth is uncomfortable, even when truth is lonely, even when truth takes away the consolations that keep most people comfortable. If what I am sharing here resonates with something you have been feeling, something you have not quite been able to name, then I want you to know you are not alone in this. There are many of us exploring these questions, sitting with these uncomfortable truths, learning to live as conscious beings in a world that mostly prefers unconsciousness. I create these videos for people who are ready to go deeper, who are not satisfied with surface answers, who want to understand rather than just feel better temporarily. If that is you, consider subscribing. Not because you need another channel to follow, but because this journey of understanding yourself, of waking up to what is real, it helps to have companions along the way. People who will not offer you easy fixes, but will sit with you in the questions. I will be here every week with another exploration, another perspective, another thread to pull on, and I would be honored to have you here as part of this community of seekers and thinkers. So if this feels right, hit that subscribe button, and if you found value in this particular exploration, let me know in the comments what resonated most with you. Your reflections often illuminate things I had not considered. Because here is what I have learned. While understanding isolates us from unreflective participation, it also connects us to others who see clearly. We may have lost the capacity for simple fun, but we have gained the capacity for a different kind of connection, deeper and more honest, based not on shared illusions but on shared reality. Arendt wrote that thinking is a lonely business, but she also wrote that it is essential, that a life without thought is not fully human, even if it is easier, even if it is happier in the moment. She believed that the capacity to think, to question, to examine, this was what prevented the worst evils, even if it also prevented the easiest pleasures. And she was right, but she was also describing a burden that most people never fully take on. Most people think enough to get by, enough to appear intelligent, enough to function in their social and professional worlds. But they do not think all the way through. They stop before reaching the point where thinking becomes destructive to their comfort. They maintain a balance between awareness and participation, between understanding and enjoyment. But you did not stop there, you kept going. And now you are on the other side of a threshold and you cannot go back. So the question is not how to recover what you lost. The question is how to build a life on this side of the threshold, in this cold, clear space of understanding, where fun is no longer possible, but something else might be. What that something else is will be different for each person. For some, it is the satisfaction of intellectual clarity, the pleasure of understanding for its own sake. For others, it is a different kind of engagement with the world, not through enjoyment but through compassion, through seeing people clearly and therefore being able to help them more effectively. For others still, it is the peace of no longer being pulled around by desires and fears you do not understand, the freedom of standing outside the game while others are still caught in it. None of these are fun, but they are something. They are the rewards of consciousness, the compensations for having pushed through to understanding, and they are only available to those who have lost the capacity for unreflective enjoyment. You cannot have both. You chose understanding, whether you meant to or not. And now you live with the consequences. The world has not stopped being fun because something is wrong with you. The world has stopped being fun because you understand it. And understanding and fun are incompatible. This is not a problem to fix. This is a truth to accept. You can still act, you can still connect with people, you can still participate in the world, but you will do so as a conscious being, someone who knows what they are doing, who sees the patterns and mechanisms, who is not fooled by surfaces. This is a different kind of life. It is not necessarily a worse life. It is just different, and it is the life available to you now, given what you have come to understand. The question is not how to go back. The question is how to go forward from here, how to live well in this condition of consciousness, how to find meaning and purpose and maybe even satisfaction in a world that has become transparent to your understanding. There is no simple answer to this question, but the answer starts with accepting that the loss of fun is real, is permanent, and is the price you pay for seeing clearly. Once you accept that, once you stop trying to get back what you have lost, you can start to discover what becomes possible in its place. And that discovery, while colder than fun, while lonelier than participation, might turn out to be more valuable than you currently imagine. Understanding is its own reward, even when it costs you everything else.